Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast where I bring you the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth and journeys to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, I have a good one today. No, I don't have a good one. I have a great one today. My guest on the podcast is Anton Nootenboom, also known as the Barefoot Dutchman and the Barking Dog. He spent 10 years in the Dutch Army and went on 3 tours of Afghanistan. After struggling with his own mental health, he ended up on top of a cliff in Sydney and witnessing firsthand what it does to others. He found his way out of it is now better than ever before because these experiences felt a burning desire to make a difference. And now he is walking extremely uncomfortable barefoot across the country to break the Guinness Book of World Records to raise awareness for mental health. We're going to get to it. I want to talk about him being the only person, right? Only person to get to Base Camp Everest barefoot. Yeah,
Yep.
that's crazy. We're going to get to it. And he started this journey on the 17th of February. We're recording this on the 22nd of March. Started in Santa Monica. He walked all his way to Vegas. And if anybody knows that drive, that walk, it's pretty precarious. But let's get to it. Anton, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I want to give a quick shout out to Amy Mallon for connecting us. And I want to give a massive shout out to
Yes.
Movember, which really brought us together. Tremendous supporter of that cause. I've had some other great folks associated, Jason O'Mara, and some other wonderful people from Movember. So big shout out to Movember before we get to it. The first thing, all right. I always kind of like, this show I was telling you before is about career journeys and life journeys. You served in the military, and thank you so much for your service and giving to your country and protecting the good and righteous out there. But what did your parents do for a living?
Ah, funny enough, my dad is a graphic designer. He had his own company, um, and he was really successful. He still is, but a bit older now. And my mom was mostly working with him, and at some point had a modeling agency as well. So she started her own company.
Interesting.
So yeah, they did really well with having their own companies.
How did you always have a path of going into the military, or was that something they were supportive of?
They were definitely supportive. It was never my intention, but then, um, yeah, bit of a story too. One of my brothers was in the army, so as a young boy, like my brothers are way older than I am. I'm the accident.
Hmm.
They
Happy accident.
yeah, happy accident. I got a bit of a sense of what it means to be in the army, and I was actually going to go to the States, do high school, do college there. I had this big dream of playing American football, but then my dad's company actually went down. Everything
Hmm.
was still in private, and lost everything they owned. And so I decided, okay, so then it's time for me to work. I was still living with my parents. I had the experience of my brother from the army. It's like, well, I was traveling a lot. It's like, okay, then I'll get a sense of an adventure. I get paid to travel. I always felt like as a young guy, I want to experience what it's like to be in the army. So yeah,
Hmm.
for me, it was an easy choice then just to join the army and yeah, check that
And
out.
and and for everyone out there, compared to the United States, we have our hands in shit. We're in everything. We get involved with everybody else's problems. But the Dutch, um, how active of a military is it?
Same. So wherever the states go, the Dutch go. So we're all part of
From
NATO.
NATO. Yeah.
Yeah. So whichever mission is there, the Dutch join. Of course, we're a small country, but for a small country, we have like a pretty large army compared to the people that live in the Netherlands. And we always like to be the good kid of the class. Front row. So yeah, we're always there.
Well, we appreciate the allyship, and you certainly have had your share of battle, 3 tours in Afghanistan, and I've had many veterans on the show, and I can imagine, but I can never relate. I can never understand the physical and mental stress of what it's like. And obviously, there's different roles within the military. There's frontline soldiers, there's folks in the back, there's logistics, there's people in the offices, there's everything in between. But no matter what, everyone carries a weight and a stress. Talk to us a little bit about what you did in the military. What was your rank? What was your position? What did you do?
I was mostly in the infantry, so like a light machine gun carrier. I was, yeah, like I said, I was there for 10 years. I never decided to go up in rank because I knew going up in rank you get the less fun jobs. I knew I didn't want to have a career within the army. Like I was actually supposed to be there for 2.5 years. I ended up staying for 10 because I just had a good time as well. But I just stayed, in the rank of private first class, and I loved it that way. I had all the adventure, I had all the fun stuff, going on the exercise and stuff. Not a lot of responsibility other than just doing my own job. Loved it.
And did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you see active battle?
Yeah. So 3 tours to Afghanistan, and as an infantryman, this is when you go to Afghanistan, you do the stuff you mainly see in the movies. So you go in, yeah, you go out into the towns and the villages to do the foot patrols, and yeah, we had our fair share of again what you see in the movies as well. Not a lot of really big firefights. We had a lot of explosions.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that definitely puts you
Much.
back into perspective on how precious life is.
So let's give everyone a little perspective there, and I can't even imagine it. Listen, I sit in an office all day, but every day that you went out to work, there's a chance that you're going to die. There's a very high probability you're putting yourself at risk. How do you even start to? I mean, listen, you signed up for this. You knew what you were getting into. You know that's the job. That's in the job description there to put your life at risk to protect your country and protect the free world out there. How did they teach you any mental health tools and tricks in basic training? Like, what prepares you to have that soldier mindset?
I don't think you can actually really prepare for the real deal. Of course, they can set up scenarios, but the feeling you get when uh, work really starts, let me put it that way, then
Yeah,
like you don't know how you're going to respond till it actually happens. Like there's a whole different set of like adrenaline that comes to it. Um, for me, they kind of like they teach you how to shut off your emotions. So
like just
whenever
completely blank screen.
that's it, like you just drill. So for every sound, for every scenario, there's a drill. So you just don't think, you do, which is good. That's what you need in those scenarios. Like, don't think too much, just do, act, and then think, second. Of course, not in every scenario. Sometimes you need to think, okay, what's the next step? But I think that was like the main thing, like respond to the situation, do your thing without having too much emotion around it. And I think that's the one thing they did really well, like shut off your emotion, do your drill.
That's crazy,
Um,
and it's important, right? Because it's not just you out there. You need to be on point and sharp for the rest of your team. The weakest link could be catastrophic.
100%. So that's the main reason why you do it. So you know exactly where everyone's at. You know exactly what your job to do is in that point. So other can rely on you knowing that you're going to do your job as well. So it all has its 100% perfect effects. When it comes to doing the job. So I was like, I we have very good training. I like to say the Dutch, because we're a tiny country, not a lot of people. There's a lot of time to train all these people, so we get a lot of training in all sorts of aspects, and yeah, we definitely did a good job in that.
That's fascinating, and I'd love to hear firsthand. Right, it's the adrenaline high when you're out on patrol, when you have to be 100% focused on 360, everything going around you, and then you come back to base camp, or even let's take it a step further, when the tour's over and you come back home. How do you come down from that adrenaline? And correct me if I'm wrong, that probably added a lot to the deterioration of your mental health.
um, I think at first, for me personally, the first few weeks, sometimes months, depending on the mission, I definitely had a bit of struggles just to come back to normal life again. Like everything becomes a trigger. Even when you go out, which I still did, I was pretty young. You go out every weekend, and if
Right.
the classic story, someone bumps into you by accident, but you're on your toes straight away. Like,
Trigger
who
happy.
are you? What do you want? Yeah, yeah. And for me, luckily, that slowly just started to fade. Like I didn't know how to do the work. I didn't know how to deal with it, other than time is gonna pass and it will be better. I got lucky in that sense that my brain is wired in a way that that part of my life I could process myself, and it just became normal again. Where a lot of my buddies didn't. They got stuck in the overthinking and yeah, reliving the scenarios. But I'm just lucky in two senses, that my brain is wired in a way that I could process it, and that I walked out in one piece three
Yeah,
times.
and you're lucky.
But yeah, it's a different process for everyone.
But when did you realize though that you something wasn't right, that you were maybe not the same, or maybe you weren't processing normal things the right way. And I'd love to, kind of tell that story when you're on that hilltop in Sydney.
Yeah, so for me, it didn't come until much, much later. It's like years later. So after 10 years, I decided to leave the army. I was traveling a lot already, and while traveling, fully realized, the 5-star life I live right now in a luxurious country like the Netherlands. It's beautiful. I'm super grateful, but it's not my type of life right now. I'm a little bit more happy with a little bit less, so I got more space to actually live and go on these adventures. So sold everything I owned.
Wow.
Eventually started this trip in Australia, never left. And after a few years of living in Australia, I think for me it started with um, just everything that can happen in anyone's life. So for me, it was Murphy's Law. Everything landed on my plate at once. So I had a heartbreak, which is, regardless of what the background situation is, it's always one of the hardest things to have to go through. At the same time, financial pressure, because I did sell my apartment in the Netherlands, but definitely not at, the right time. But I didn't care. I was young. I was like, I was
You
going to
just want to get
travel the
rid of it.
world. Yeah, that's it. Which left me like with a big financial debt, something that a lot of us have to go through as well, that financial pressure. And with that financial pressure, I came to the feeling, okay, because so now I'm stuck in this life that I have here. And I was working in construction, and not saying that construction is a bad job, but all of a sudden I was like, whoa, but this is definitely not what I left the Netherlands for.
No.
But really feeling stuck in that situation because of the financial pressure. And that got me thinking so much. Like I started to get in this negative downward spiral of just talking really badly to myself. I got myself
Negative
in that position.
self-talk. Mm.
Um, that my body started to respond. So all that negative thinking, my body started to get into this constant fight or flight. I didn't know back then, but like hyperventilating, panic attacks. Panic attacks became so severe, it started to feel like I was getting like a heart attack. And on top of that, all of a sudden I could just burst out in tears. And I didn't know where these tears came from. But as a guy, as a man on a construction site in Australia, showing tears was definitely a no go, of course. At least that's what I taught myself. Don't cry, man up. Which meant I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't come to work because I would just get these panic attacks. And not working in one of the most expensive cities on the planet, Sydney, meant I couldn't afford a living anymore. And at 31 years of age back then, and age doesn't matter, it's just a number, but
No.
it definitely can feel like it sometimes. I ended up uh, having to move into a hostel, a 6-bed dorm room, and, just laying there in my bunk bed and sliding into deep depression. And
Mm.
at that point, I realized I completely lost my own identity. I just didn't know who I was anymore. Like, I didn't know when I left the army, I actually left my own identity. For 10 years, all
But
I had
why?
to
But
do
why?
was,
It was so tied, right? Like your identity was tied to being a soldier.
yeah, yeah.
You didn't have that
Like,
self of who is Anton outside of the army? Who is Anton in the world? It was just about
exactly.
when you were there.
Yeah. Like, for 10 years, all you have to do is put on a suit so you can pretend like you're a bush. You have this very goal driven life. You're always working towards something. And now all of a sudden, I was like really free, which is like a
Hmm.
good feeling, but I had no sense of direction, no
Heavy.
sense of what I could do. So yeah, like all of that came together, and yeah, I really got stuck in this negative thinking, and I didn't know how to deal with that.
How bad did it get?
It got to the point where um, I I didn't feel anything anymore. Where I was usually the point where like, other people would come to me if they had problems, because I was always the guy
Hmm.
full of life. Like, look at how beautiful this view is. Look at, because of Afghanistan, I knew life could be over within a second. So I was fully appreciating it. And now I was this empty shell, and I was getting frustrated because I was living in Sydney, the most beautiful beaches in the world. And I knew I had to feel something, but I didn't feel anything anymore. And the people around me, all my friends, I started to push them away, or they just didn't really want to be around those negative clouds. So I wanted to feel something, and I decided to hike up to this cliff. Sydney, all of Australia, but especially Sydney, has these beautiful viewing points on top of a cliff. Just to go there and feel, to enjoy something. And I climbed the fence, and which you do there, like it's quite normal to enjoy the view. And as I got closer to the edge, again, I didn't feel anything. And instead, I looked down. I could understand why you can take that very last step. And saying that, I didn't feel like I want my life to end. I didn't want to die, but I just wanted that pain and that long dark tunnel ahead of me to stop. Um, and luckily, the thought process scared me a lot, and I stumbled back and I climbed back over the fence. And there's a very long fence, and like every few meters was a sign saying, if you're in mental distress, call Lifeline. We're here 24/7, because there's a
Wow.
lot of people that actually do end their lives
It
there.
was
And
a sign, literally. It
there
was a
was,
sign.
yeah.
Yeah.
But funny enough, even in that moment when I read that sign, still on the inside, I was kind of like laughing to myself, like, mate, you don't have a problem. You're a man. Like, you'll solve this yourself. And
Toughen up, right? You're
yeah,
better. You're thicker
exactly.
than this. You're trained for this. Get over this
Yeah,
shit. Toughen up. No.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's what I thought.
But were you chasing a feeling of trying to feel something? Like you just felt numb. Like I need to feel I feel like I need to feel in danger. I need to feel some type of emotion.
Yeah, like anything than just feeling empty and depressed. And like it's hard to explain that real feeling, but it's like this numbness that you have. Like you just I was just pacing up and down the beach for 8 to 9 hours a day. That's all I could do. Like it was a stretch of 2.5 Ks, which is maybe like
Right.
a bit over a mile and a half, something like that. I just paced it up and down, and that's all I could do. That's all I could do. And
Mm.
I would just come back to the hostel. I would sit on the couch. There's a living room with all these, young backpackers around. And I would just pass out, because then I didn't have to deal with the night or having to be social. So I would just fall asleep on that couch in the middle of the living room. And that was my day.
Wow.
I didn't feel anything else.
How did you know that you needed help, and what was that first step?
I still had one very good friend left that I luckily knew from the Netherlands as well. And she was seeing this mental health and spiritual coach for a long time already. And with a lot of resistance, where normally I will be the guy to make jokes about all these type of stuff, like go hug a tree or float away on your magic carpet, very far out of my comfort zone, let me put it that way. I eventually said, you know what, I'll come. Like, she kept saying, like, come with me, maybe she can help. um, and with a lot of resistance, like, you know what, I'm gonna come, just to be
Mm.
done with whinging about me having to come. And when I saw the coach, I told her as well, like, I'm not coming back. I don't have any money. Just give me something to hold on to, with that mindset. Um, and she did. She gave me two things. One was a book, Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And the other was an app called Headspace, a meditation app. And again, with a lot of resistance, I started to do things like, thinking by myself. I had to chew on this raisin. I will never forget. I had to chew on a raisin and go
Raisin.
through like all the senses. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm chewing on a
It was
raisin.
focus, right? It was
Yeah,
focus. It was focus exercise.
yeah, yeah. And like with the meditation, all of a sudden I had to find a quiet spot by myself. And I was thinking, like, this is the last thing I want to do right now. I don't want to be by myself
I
and
can't
just be
meditate.
beautiful for my own mind. Um, but then after a while, I started to realize, but hey, I'm pretty sure I just didn't think about my own problems for a few minutes.
Hmm.
And that was that first moment I started to realize, okay, so this is doing something. What else can I do?
Wow. It's awareness. It's recognizing. It's building a support team. So when was that switch that went off that said, you know what, I got myself in a good place, and I want to raise awareness and help others, and how else the fuck am I going to do this? I'm going to walk barefoot. Like how does that even idea come to your mind? Did you have other ideas that you wanted to help? Like, you got yourself in a good place, you wanted to spread the good word. How did you get to the point of the idea of very, very long barefoot journeys?
Yeah, oh, there's a bit of a story. So when I
That's what we're
started
here
to
for,
come out of
man.
it,
That's what we're here for. We're here for the stories. That's
well, like because I traveled so much, I always fully realized how lucky and blessed I am to be born and raised in a safe country like the Netherlands, with all the luxury that we have. And I always felt like one day I want to do something back for people less fortunate than I am. And coming out of that, I wanted to treat myself for doing the hard work of coming out of it. And traveling was always, the best gift I could give myself. So I decided I wanted to see Nepal. I wanted to see the highest mountain range on the planet. I want to see the highest mountain in the world. And by going to Nepal, I figured, okay, these people are definitely not living on top of the world. They might do in the mountains, but they definitely need some help. So I want to do something for these people. And one last ingredient was that the army, really teaches you a lot of things. But what they definitely taught me is all that whenever you think you're tired or you're hungry or you can't go any further, that's when they say you're only at 10% of what you can actually achieve. And by constantly physically and mentally challenging you, they make you feel that
Pleasure.
you got so much more power than you make yourself believe. And I lost that feeling. So I wanted to feel that again. So I wanted to physically and mentally challenge myself again to feel that power inside me, but also share that with other people. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do base camp of Mount Everest because, that might be a little bit of a physical and mental
Well, let's
challenge.
also put that in perspective for everybody out there. Even base camp. What's the elevation of base camp?
It's in meters, it's 5,364 meters.
Which is almost higher than any peak here in the States that you could even think about. First, you got to get to Nepal, which is a
Yeah,
trek in itself and paperwork and everything. You fly into
yeah.
Kathmandu. Kathmandu, I've watched tons of documentaries. It's
It's
pretty much a third
hectic.
world country, right? It's pretty
Yeah,
epic, right?
yeah,
There's
it's
a ton of
beautiful.
poverty out there. The main industry is Everest tourism and with legacy and lineage of Sherpas but
Yeah,
it's a poor area.
it's very poor. And then, of course, they had the earthquake in 2015, which completely
Oh,
destroyed everything as well. And not really having the right means or financial needs to rebuild like that quickly. Um, and then yeah, base camp. People do it. It's a trek, but not everyone makes it. You got
just a
altitude
base camp.
sickness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
terribly altitude sickness is awful.
oh yeah, it just hits you, and like you can train as much as you want, but if it hits you, it hits you. So, but then still, I was thinking, base camp Everest, yes, it's a physical and mental challenge, but it's not very out of the ordinary. I was thinking if you want to raise funds and awareness for something, you're gonna have to come up with something better than just walking to base camp of Everest. And living in Sydney, living in Australia, walking barefoot is a little bit more in the culture. Like I was just walking barefoot without thinking about it.
It's what people do.
That's it. And one of these days I was just walking home barefoot, and all of a sudden I thought by myself, you know what? I'm pretty sure no one's ever done base camp on Everest barefoot because why would you? Like it's super uncomfortable. It's going to be painful. It's going to be challenging. And as soon as I thought about challenging, that's like when that eureka moment came. Like, okay, I'm going to be the first person ever to do base camp of Mount Everest barefoot, and that's going to do the trick of getting the attention to raise awareness and
Uh,
funds. And
of course.
yeah, did the trick.
Did anybody try to talk you out of it?
No, not really. I mean, by that time as well, like people knew, especially before I got into like my mental health chapter. I am an adventurous guy. I love seeking the edges and traveling a lot, always looking for different things to do. So they knew as well they could try to talk me out of it, but they kind of liked the idea of
Yeah, like this guy. We're gonna go with it. So I need to ask you just a couple of questions here. Are you always barefoot, or are there times when you wear shoes?
Oh no, I usually use shoes. So
Right. So typically you're on
yeah,
shoes when you're on airplanes and walking around, and you're going food
oh for sure,
shopping, and you're going.
for
Yeah,
sure.
and this is
Yeah,
special.
yeah, yeah.
So I can't even imagine, right? Like if I'm just, I'm pretty sure that I could walk the mile and a half from where I am now in my office to my house barefoot. I'm pretty sure I could do it. It's going to be painful. I'm
Yeah.
going to step on some shit, mostly sidewalks. There's going to be a couple little rocks here and there, maybe a shard of glass here. But Everest Base Camp, I mean, what was the distance that you walked on completely rugged terrain?
Oh, so the total distance is about 70 k's, which is not even, like it's a lot, but it's not even that far. But of course, it's the elevation and the type of terrain that you're in that makes it very challenging.
Set it up, but what were you walking on?
So like there's like let's say three layers. So the first base layer when you land on Lukla, which is known for being the most dangerous airport on the planet.
I've seen it. It's
Um,
crazy.
it's like a very short runway on an angle. But like a lot of accidents happen there if they can't if there's any cloud, they're not flying. So it was like an adventure already. And the first like let's say layer was a lot of towns. It was like sort of a normal walking track. A lot of people go there. It was mainly mud, donkey, horse, and yak dung.
Ugh,
like just poop. And at
just shit
first you would
everywhere.
just, yeah, shit everywhere. Like they're not being taught just to, shit outside of the path. No,
Mm.
it's just right on the path. And at first you try to avoid it, but at some point it's like, well, I'm doing extra mileage right now. Like I might as well just walk through it. And it actually became pretty soft on the feet.
Well, it's actually moisturizing, right? That's part of your foot care routine.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite good for the skin. Don't recommend doing that on the streets though.
No, not in New
Um,
York.
no. But
Your friends will look at you funny. They'll be like, "This guy needs some help."
yeah, he needs attention again. um,
Look at Adam walking through the horse shit. There he
yeah,
is.
yeah, here he goes again. um, but then you like the higher you get, like the less oxygen in the air, so the vegetation starts to disappear,
Mm.
and it becomes a bit more bare rocks. And that's when it becomes like a whole lot more challenging. And temperature wise, I waited until the end of the season, so
I was gonna
temperatures
ask.
would go up a little bit. But at some point, you get to like the highest bit. It's just bare rocks and ice. Like the ice was not on the actual footpath itself, like it was on the sides, but still, you know, cold.
Well, I mean,
It was challenging.
it's tough as you are, though. You can't you. There's certain scientific facts that their hypothermia will kick in at a certain point. Unexposed exposed skin will be suspect to that. How did you protect
Yeah,
your feet against hypothermia?
I think two things. So like when I started in the morning, like I needed 20 or 30 minutes for my feet to actually just I think the blood flow would start and your feet actually warm up a little bit.
Hmm,
So I just had to push through that first bit, and as soon as I had a pace, it was okay. I think I got lucky with the temperatures. Like in the morning, the ground was still frozen, but during the day the temperature would go up, so I was okay, and it was dry. If it
that's
gets
important.
wet, then you're screwed. But it was just a really dry cold, so I was okay with that. I think the biggest problem is when your feet are that cold and they're so sore, all the rocks you step on. There's a lot of Dutch curse words that I'm not going to explain what they mean, but they were going through that entire valley every single day.
But is that the pain you were chasing?
Yeah, that's the challenge I was looking for, I think.
The
You don't
physical
want
and
the
mental
pain, but
challenge.
at the same time, that's the pain that makes it into the challenge that gets the attention. If it was going to be easy, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking to each other.
No, no.
It's the fact that it's so out of the ordinary and so challenging that also shows that our mind and body is so much stronger than we make ourselves believe, and going through that hopefully shows other people as well that regardless of what life is going to throw at you, physically and mentally, you're so much stronger than you make yourself believe.
Damn, man.
Yeah,
I love it. And just because people are going to be asking, like, I'm sure your feet took a beating that no one could ever imagine. And what was the worst kind of cut or injury that you went through, and how'd you deal with it?
I think the worst feel. Do you know, like, have you ever played with Lego?
Legos are my favorite thing in the world. My whole office behind me is filled with Legos, and
Oh
everyone
no
knows
way!
Lego is Dutch for two words. Lego. It's play well.
Yeah, yeah. It's good, nice. So like you remember like like when
40
there's that
years of
one
playing Legos,
loose
my
of
friend. 40 years of Legos.
oh
And I play with my kids all day. That's how I bond with my kids. It's Legos, Legos,
yeah,
Legos. My whole office.
oh amazing,
I got two sets over there. I got to build. I got all my stuff up there on the shelf. I'll show
love
you
it.
later. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Okay, then I don't have to explain that feeling to you when there's that one loose piece of Lego in the middle of the living room. You don't see it, and you step on it with your full weight. That's what happened constantly. So you just, I had this full backpack on. I was going up and down the mountain, and then my full weight on my like the backside of my foot would step on this piece of Lego, like a sharp piece of rock, and I would just explode. It hurt so much, and it's just like you don't get wounds of it, but like the nerve endings on your feet just get busted every time you do it. So like you just get these shots of pain going through like your entire leg. But it's definitely not fun. But
No.
it's that's at some point you
I
kind of laugh it off and you keep walking again.
So it's kind of funny, like you see those people that do like the hot coal challenge, right? They're walking across the hot coals. I'm like, that's his warm up. That's his. That's what that does for a warm up here. So let's fast forward. You accomplish Everest. You start to gain the attention that you see. This is now a platform that you could really use, and you're in a
Yeah.
unique position where it's not the world records. And I'm sure
No.
they're a good bar story, right? They're a good story to tell,
Oh yeah.
on a date or a bar or to
Yeah.
your buddies, right? That's kind of cool. Like, hey, I'm a Guinness Book of World Records holder. They're also like, you're the stupidest motherfucker out there for trying to walk Everest, right?
Yep.
Like, but now we talk about taking it to the next level. How did you align with the Movember movement? And I want to get into why that's so powerful and important, and then we'll get to the
Yeah.
mission
So
now.
like that base camp Everest was like your typical Hollywood movie moment where when I reached it, I touched this big ass rock that was there with the height, and I fully realized I got something here. It's a simple now, like I call it a paperclip moment. It's
Ah,
as simple as using your two bare feet and willpower that can create a change for someone else. So that's pretty much where the Barefoot Dutchman is born. And coming back from it, I still had things to deal with. Like I wasn't fully out of the clear, and
right.
as I started to process in my own, um, you know, coming out of it, I started to dig into this to the numbers of what mental health actually means, and especially men's mental health. We still live with this very outdated belief that showing emotion and vulnerability is a weakness. Don't cry, man up. The opposite is true. It's courageous. It takes courage to speak up, and I I felt as I was thinking about it, and as I looked, like in Australia, for example, it's the number one cause of death for men from age 15 to 45, and that number is rising.
Not even
It's the
heart
same in the
disease. Not
Netherlands.
even more than heart disease.
Oh, same. Yeah, and
Oh,
same in the Netherlands. Same in America. It's I think right now the number two and number three cause of
after
death. It's
gun violence in the U.S., that's a whole other
yes,
freaking. That's a whole other story, but tied to mental health,
yeah.
nonetheless.
Again, like a lot of things that happen here in the US are related to mental health, but it's not like the main cause. But I know in the States, every 14 minutes, one man dies of suicides. Worldwide, that is one man every single minute. So every single minute of this conversation, we have lost one man, and
I
it's
can't even.
preventable. Like
I can't even wrap my head around that, man. I can't even
it's
like.
it's
It's
crazy.
preventable. It's listening. It's being an ally. It's looking out for your
Yeah.
buddies. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing too. And luckily, I'm very connected. I do a lot of men's work. Involved with men's circles and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very attuned and listening and close to my friends and saying, "Hey, it's not about machismo and being all manly and everything, but like, let's talk about it. Get it out there. Listen to your
Yes.
friends. Like, maybe they don't want to talk to their wife, spouse, partner, or coworkers, whatever. So be there for them and
Yeah.
find a way to touch base with them. And it's not like, hey man, it could be as simple as, hey, just checking in with you. Like, are you good? Like, things okay? Like, I'm here for you. Like, how can I help you?
That's it. That's it. And sometimes when we see a mate that he might be struggling, you never know. Like on the outside, it hardly ever tells, but sometimes as a good mate, you can feel. But then we feel like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask that question because I haven't been through anything big enough or something like that. But always ask the question. You don't have to be a psychologist or a mental health advocate or whatever. Like just ask the question, um, and you don't need to have any perfect answers. Just for that person to have a listening ear or someone just to vent to is everything that's needed in that first moment to be heard, be seen, be felt,
Yep.
and on the other side as well. Like I know how hard it can be to speak up and to firstly accept that you might have something to work on. The accepting bit is the hardest bit, I think,
Yes.
because we
100%.
just like to think we don't have problems, but it's perfectly fine to have a problem. We all do this life for the very first time, so it's perfectly normal to not have the answer to everything. So it's perfectly normal to reach out for a helping hand whenever you need some help, and just
Yeah.
accepting the fact that you can ask for help, that it's perfectly fine, has nothing to do with being man or woman, but everything with being human, is the first step to take. And then just to say like, hey man, I might be struggling, and I in the Netherlands we have a saying like, I will put two hands in the fire for it, like just knowing you're very sure about this. But I know for sure as soon as you do, one, you feel like that first sense of relief, like, oh, it's out of your system, and two, you'll find out that everyone in your close friend groups or
Hmm.
family have a background story. Everyone is dealing with
We all
something.
carry a heavy weight.
That's it. It's perfectly normal, and you'll feel like immediately like you're not alone. You're not alone in this process. You don't have to do this by yourself. So um, to to show that to other people. If there's one thing I learned in the army, is lead by example. So I learned all these facts, I learned all these numbers, I learned all the tools myself to deal with it. And I wanted to lead by example. I wanted to create like a safe space for others to feel like, okay, but if he can do it, then I can do it. And that's how we work as men. You know, when we see another man do something, like, oh, I can do that. We
Yeah.
see a pilot land a plane, it's like, oh, I can land that plane if it needs to. You know, like it's how we work. So I wanted to create that safe space. And I had these two bare feet. I was living in Australia, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna walk the entire east coast of Australia barefoot. Turned out to be a Guinness World Record, but that way I could walk through like all the cities, towns, and villages to
Yeah.
share my story, to
Awareness.
share my tools, to raise the awareness, and yeah, to break that stigma, to change perspective, so men actually, you know, have their chest out and chin up when they feel like I'm speaking up,
Be
instead of
proud.
like, yeah,
Be
and
proud of your work.
yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, and that's how I got into touch with Movember as well.
I love it. I got to hear like one thing, like how many, geez, I can't imagine what, like Australia. I want to go to Australia. It's on my radar. My kids are little. I want to wait till they're a little bit older, but they got some scary ass fucking snakes and spiders there, man. Like they have stuff you can't even imagine. Like I live here on the
Yep.
East Coast in New York. We get maybe a couple of spiders and shit here, like, you know, maybe a crazy raccoon or a cat or something.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different nature set down under over there. Like,
Yep.
you're walking, like those things come right at your feet, man. At least like if you have shoes or sneakers on, you got some kind of barrier. But like, tell us just one crazy like animal, snake, bug kind of story, man, when you're walking.
Well, you know, I mainly saw dead snakes because
Dead snakes.
they go on the road to warm
Oh, they
up
get smashed.
at the start, at the end of the day. So after 100 dead snakes, and they've got the most poisonous snake in the world in Australia, and they got the most deadly snake in the world, which is two
Great.
different things.
Fun fact.
Yeah, yeah, and they're like they're all out there. I saw them dead on the side of the house. Like, yep, I know they're there. I had to pitch my tent next to the highway every night, so I knew there was somewhere around my tent. But I only saw that one, so at some point I just, you know, I kind of lost that fear a little bit. The craziest story is actually about men's best friend.
Uh-oh.
I love dogs. You know, they're my favorite thing on this planet. But
Right.
in Australia, they bred this new, is that right word? Bred? Yeah.
Yep.
This other type of dog, which is used for hunting.
Uh-oh.
Bull Arabs are the
Like a
names.
wolf dog kind of
It's
Wolverine.
like, I don't know, like it's like all sorts of hunting dogs into one massive cow of a dog. Like it's like a
Sounds safe.
calf, like the side of a calf. And I was, you know, crocodiles is a thing as well. So I could only go into this river, like these creeks, to swim, cool down a
Yeah,
bit.
just throw in the crocodiles and those big jacked
Yeah,
up kangaroos that'll punch you in the
yeah,
face.
yeah, exactly.
And then they'll
Like, I
kick you
mean,
in the junk. Like, they're terrible. What the
yeah.
hell's wrong with Australia? I don't want to go there. I changed my mind.
No, you'll love it. You'll love it. You never want to go home. um, but yeah, I went into one of these creeks that I got told, like, you can cool down there. It's nice. There's only freshwater crocodiles. They still get up to like 3 meters, but they won't eat you. So
They'll
I was
take
in
your arm
there,
off.
and maybe.
Punch him in the face.
Yeah, I'll just wrestle them. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I got, at some point I turned around. I had this trolley that I had all my camping gear
Yeah,
in.
I've seen
And,
you
you know,
pushing that.
yeah, Wilson was his name.
Wilson
And, you know,
from yes, from the Tom Hanks movie.
yeah. And, you know, I you know, got my swim shorts on. So I put all my clothes in a bow in my hat I was carrying every day. And I turned around, and all of a sudden I saw these two massive dogs just, you know, barking, standing there. And I thought they were just really excited to see me. So I got out of the water, and I wanted to walk towards my trolley that was standing there. And I took a few steps towards them because I thought, like, I want to pet them. That's what I do with dogs, with all of them. But I know that I've been with dogs my entire life, and I know dogs' behavior as well. And I realized straight away after 3 missions in Afghanistan, this is probably the most, I'm not sure if I can say it, but fucked up situation I've ever been to in my life.
You thought
Like,
these dogs were ready to kill. They were just not backing
oh,
away.
definitely not. They were like, I saw their behavior, like they were, like the foam was just going everywhere. Like,
No,
and they
these
were
are
getting
rabid
into like
dogs.
their hunting behavior. So the youngest one was going to one side, the older one was going to the other side, and I know the first one
Oh
always
man.
like latches on, and they will start tearing the flesh, and the second one goes for your throat to kill the animal. And I knew now this is what was going to happen with me. There was nothing I can do to it. And they were like getting closer and closer, and I had my hat with my clothes in one hand. And at some point, I from my training, I know, okay, what's your breathing? As soon as you slow down your breathing, you get more clarity.
Focus.
You know what to do. You get your focus back, and just in time. So the first dog went for my arm, and I knew how to like press my head with my clothes in his mouth. And I let go, and I just made myself as big as I could, and I started screaming, like making sure he knew I was not like a kangaroo. And for 1 second, that they backed off for a little bit, thinking, okay, what the hell is this for some weird of animal? And that was my moment to like keep looking at them, but take a few steps back into the water. And I got really lucky. For some reason, they ran off. So I think my scream was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but usually they don't stop until an owner says stop. They start
Right.
like tearing flesh until owner says stop. But there was no owner, so I think maybe they heard something and they ran off into the bush. I don't know what happened, but I got lucky there. That's for sure.
That's not how you want to die, man.
No, definitely not.
No, it's terrible death. That's a shitty death.
I know. Yeah, if it was going to be in Australia, then at least a crocodile or a snake, but not a dog.
Oh man, those damn dogs. So let's it's a crazy story. Glad I asked that one. So let's fast forward. Now you're on this mission. You're walking across the United States. You started in Santa Monica on the 17th of February. Here we are on the 22nd. How was that first part of the first leg of the walk? It's desert, right? You're walking
absolute hell.
Yeah,
absolute hell. It's worse than Australia. I can.
Were you walking on the roads? Where which path did you take? Did you follow the highway?
No, because at the first bit I wasn't allowed to walk on the highway, so I had to take like.
It's a good rule.
Off.
There's no sidewalk on the fucking highway for a reason.
So like there's like these side roads that you can take, but at some point I decided. So I was on Route 66 for a little bit, but then the bitumen of Route 66 is just a loose pebble, so I couldn't win. Like it was just hurting so much. So I decided to. I saw like these dirt roads going into the desert. Into the Mojave Desert. So I decided, you know what? Maybe that's a shortcut. Maybe I can just walk into the desert and, it's part of the adventure. I'll do that. And the first maybe mile or so, it was like loose sense. Like, oh, yes, I made the right choice here.
Feels
but
good.
Then I was like in the desert, and there was no way I was going to turn around. So like, this didn't work. And it turned into a hell. It was beautiful because I was by myself in the desert, but the roads are just bare rocks, constant wind, like this dry wind in your face. It was terrible. It was so painful.
Do you carry like what's in your sack? Are you fully self sufficient? Like, do you have all your water with you? Do you have a crew following you?
Yeah, so I have a crew following me. So I got like a crew of 3 and 2 camper vans this time. So not just pitching a tent anymore, just living in a camper van.
Oh,
but
now you're fancy.
There were stages where they couldn't. Yeah, I definitely upgraded myself.
You earned it, man.
Thanks, man.
You've proven that you could do it completely off the grid in Nepal and in Australia. Like you're good. You're not proving that part.
I've done that.
Everyone gets it.
Yeah. So now I have the support unit, but they couldn't get there because on most of parts of the stretches the vent couldn't reach. So I'm still pushing this trolley. This time his name is Bubba.
Bubba.
We keeping the Tom Hanks thing.
Bubba Gump.
Yeah. So it was terrible, but at the same time beautiful. It's a weird sense, as in like it was so painful. I mentally definitely had like a little breakdown.
There's beauty in the breakdown.
What's that?
There's beauty in the breakdown.
Yeah, I definitely needed a breakdown. Like there was such a build up to this new project as well. Like it's so much bigger than everything has ever been so far, and physically I was struggling so much. And on one of these days I broke down. Like I saw my team in the distance and I had this imaginary finish line for myself, and as I stumbled towards that finish line I could already feel the emotions coming up, and I was actually happy to feel that, because I knew for a while already I just needed to release something. And as I came out of that first part of the desert, I had this release, and I couldn't stop crying for a while. It felt so good. It felt so good to be letting that go. And after that, had so much more energy for whatever was going to come.
It built it back up for you.
Like this burden was just off my shoulders, and I felt lighter again to tackle the rest.
That's
And it
great.
still got horrible, but
So
yeah,
you're walking across the United States. What's a projected time for you to? So you're finishing in New York City, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When do
So
you think
it's
that's going to be?
around somewhere in October, I think. I hope September, but more likely
Are you
October.
going all summer?
So
That's
it's
going to
gonna,
take that long to go 3,000 miles. Are you
yeah,
taking breaks?
yeah, yeah. Well, I like for in the bigger cities, I have like 1 or 2 days off just to try to recharge the
Hmm.
battery for a bit. This is my first break in Las Vegas. I tell you, not really rested. Not because I went partying, but just like it's difficult to rest. There's so much you can do to keep spreading the message in a city like Las Vegas as well. But yeah, it's taking me 7 to 8 months.
Wow. Well, I
Yeah,
will do everything in my power to be there. I'm in New York City. I will do everything in my power to meet you there at the finish line, man. I absolutely love your story. I love your journey. What's your self-care routine right now? Well, twofold. One with your feet. Do you actually like when you come back from the walks, do you like do you moisturize them? Do you fix the wounds or you just go with it? Do you put like, did you bandage it up for the night and try to heal it a little bit? What do? You just go with it?
yeah, it's just going. Like I can't do anything
Well,
about
what
it
about
except for
infections? I
cleaning.
mean, you want to prevent infections and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I do like since day two, I have these wounds and they got infected. So I need to clean my feet every day. So I clean them and disinfect them, and then I just leave it because anything else would just make the skin go soft. There's other stuff that can make the skin go too
Right. The
hard, so it'll
calluses
crack
are what you.
again. Yeah. So all I can do is just rest. Like I put them up as much as I can, and they just hurt. Like the pain is something you just have to accept for what it is. So in the beginning, it's overwhelming, and at some point, you can just kind of accept the pain for what it is,
Ugh.
and it becomes part of the journey. And that's what I do now. So at night, I just lay down. Um, I got my beautiful girlfriend here. She cooks me like a good meal, and I just rest, and I try to sleep as early as I can, so I can get as much sleep as
Yeah.
possible.
Does does it
And that's all I can do, pretty
does
much.
anybody are these solo journeys, or like at any point on this trip in the US, could people walk with you like Forrest Gump? Like could people walk with you?
100%. That's pretty much the whole point. As in, like, I want this to be like one big walk and talk. So everyone that feels they want to, share a story of what mental health means to them, or just want to be part of the adventure, they can on socials they can see where I'm at, and everyone is more than welcome to come and walk with me.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Of
link.
course, right now the desert. Sorry.
I'm gonna link everybody up. They'll see this. They can follow him on Instagram. We'll put his handle up there. What's your Instagram handle so
Yes,
people can follow
please.
you?
Instagram, the most important one is the Barefoot Dutchman. And it's very important to have the, for some reason, if the is not there, you can't find it. So the Barefoot Dutchman. And I think the second most important one is like, funny enough, I hope I can mention this, but I partnered up with a barefoot shoe brand called Barbaric. So I'm walking barefoot, but I actually partnered up with a barefoot shoe brand because the next best thing is walking on barefoot shoes. Like, as with a lot of things in life, we try to force ourselves
Hmm.
and our feet in this case into something that doesn't even fit just to look good, and that misaligns our entire body, and that misaligns our entire nervous system, so we mentally struggle again. The more we give our feet, our two pillars that we stand on, the actual strength and space that it needs to just be actual feet again, the better we start to feel. So the next best thing is walking on barefoot shoes. So that's why it's this perfect match, and they're supporting me to be able to do
I
this.
love him. We support them too. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, they're called barbarics. They're amazing, and together we came up with Brave Men Talk. It's just not it's like
We
it's
see
here,
it.
Brave Men Talk. That's our campaign, and on bravementalk.com, you can find all the information about what we're doing. Um, and we mentioned it before. It's Movember that I walk for, so I'm raising funds for charities that I believe in, and Movember is the leading charity when it comes to chasing the face of men's health, men's mental health. Of course, they also, besides men's mental health, they also focus on prostate and ball cancer. Um, And they're worldwide, they're globally, they're
Yeah.
massive. Everyone knows them. Everyone knows them about the mustache,
Yep.
uh,
That's a great
and
cause.
they just do amazing work and to change perspective to help men in need. So I'm more than honored and proud to be walking for them, to raise funds for them. Like, I've got charities in the Netherlands as well. We Are Minds, but here in the States it's Movember. Um, and I love it, and their support has been
Shout out.
amazing as
Yeah.
well. Like,
They're
yeah,
they're they're
it's
they're
it's
they're 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 a great organization, good cause and everything. So Anton, let's bring it home here. Two questions
yeah.
that I ask every guest, because for me it's perspective and sharing with my audience. What is the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on daily? Every morning when you wake up, right before you're about to, trek miles barefoot. What's that mantra that plays in your head?
There's actually two, but the
Sure.
first one is do yourself first. Like, like a lot of people wake up and we start doing things straight away in order for other people or other things, and we forget ourselves. The most important thing at the start of your day is to do something that's good for you, that makes you feel good. And if you start your day with, even if it's a small meditation, or just take time for your breakfast, or do a little bit of breath work, something that's good for you, then your day is so much better, because you can always say, like, the first thing I did today was something for
I love it.
myself.
And the
So
second,
the first thing you do is do something for yourself. And the second, everything is just a phase. So everything will pass. Like, another I'm pretty sure it's not a Tom Hanks quote, but he did say, like, this too shall
yeah, it
pass.
wasn't Tom Hanks. I think it was in the
It's
Bible.
Oh, okay. I saw this Instagram reel. He said, "It's like, well, you're such a legend." But this too shall pass is such an important one to remember, because especially in the mornings are usually the worst, times for people, and you feel like overwhelmed by the day that might be ahead. But just know this too shall pass. Like, you never know what's going to happen on that day. Something might happen. You meet someone, and your entire day is completely different. So getting out of your bed might be like this very difficult thing to do in the morning, just because it's going to be a heavy day. But no, everything is just a phase. The good times, the bad times.
Yeah. That's powerful there. And as this helicopter above you, and I don't listen, I
Yeah.
rarely talk to folks outside, but this is a special circumstance, so we're gonna let this one go, and kind of everyone listening, it works with the guy I'm talking to. This guy's an outdoors. He's an outside cat. He is not an inside cat. Trust me. This guy is an
No.
he is all outside, and he probably doesn't even like being inside. If I had to guess here, maybe occasionally he
I
doesn't.
got my moments.
He has his moments there, but Anton, last but not least, you look back on those darkest moments, man, when you were in your shit pit, when you were at the bottom of that well, and you had to claw, climb back up mentally, physically, and you had to reach down and harness that inner tenacity and pull you up. And at the same time, you sit here with gratitude, respect, and purpose as mission to raise awareness. What is your beacon? What is your focus? What is your North Star in life?
Oh, I love that question. I think it's very cliche, but I think it's life itself. Knowing that, you know, like I said before, I know, like, we have to go through these phases to actually enjoy life even more. And I'm fully enjoying life, and I know there's so many more things I can do. Like, I fully love life. I want to do so many things. I want to see
Love it.
so many things, meet so many people, and that's my light. Like, I'm always, like, constantly, I'm appreciating where I'm at, but I also know there's so many more cool things to go to. So I think for a lot of people as well, we kind of get stuck in this bubble, and we don't really move anymore. We're supposed to move. We're supposed to meet new people and see new things. So go out there, like, go outside your comfort zone, go outside the bubble, explore, and that sense of life, that fire, that passion will come to you as well.
Absolutely love it, man. I love your story. Your journey is incredibly inspiring. You make me feel like such a wuss when I complain when I stub my toe or if I step on a Lego. And like, I mean,
Pain is pain,
honestly,
man.
the pain of stepping on a Lego might be the worst. I mean, listen, I have tattoos and shit.
Oh yeah,
There's nothing worse than stepping on a Lego because you're not
yeah,
expecting it. That's the whole thing with the Legos, right? And they sell funny Lego
yeah.
shoes now. It's everything too. But your mission is incredible. I want everyone to visit Movember.com. If you or someone you know is struggling, please get them help. Text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 here in the US. That's 24/7 free and confidential help. To learn more about Anton's barefoot adventure across the U.S. and donate to the cause, visit bravementalk.com. Anton, hang with me for a moment
That's it.
here. You're on an incredible mission. I am lucky to get to know you. And my audience, please contribute. Look out for one another. It's incredibly important. And this has been awesome. Anywhere else folks can connect? We have the
Thank you, man.
Instagram. Anything else you want to share before we sign off here?
Yeah, definitely the Instagram. That's where I'll be sharing every day, like whatever I go through and all the stories of people that I meet on the lake. So it's the Barefoot Dutchman, um, and Brave Men Talk, like you just mentioned. And thank you very much for providing this space. I think this is the one thing that needs to happen. This is gonna, create that ripple effect to all the listeners right now that might need to hear it in this moment. This is what we need. So thank you very much for giving that space.
Absolutely. Hang with me one moment here. We're not going to sign off just yet. Everyone out there
Yep.
listening, I really hope this show resonated with you. If it did, leave a review. Rating it goes a long way. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the socials. Remember, look out, be good to yourself, look out for one another, and catch us next week on another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.